And a very good morning to you. We're live from London. You're with Monocle on Sunday with me, Emma Nelson. And coming up today, my guests will share their views on the week's biggest stories. I have Charles Hecker and Tessa Szyszkowitz around the table. Good morning, Chuck. What have you found?
Good morning. I guess we have to start with a bit of a roundup of activity in Iran, but what we're going to talk about are media-military relationships coming out of D.C.
Thank you. And Tessa, you want to talk about a German philosopher.
Well, definitely, because I'm a Jürgen Habermas fan. And unfortunately, he died.
Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll be heading to the Nordics too.
NATO's biggest war game is underway in Norway. And in Finland, men are alarmingly out of shape. I'm Petri Burtsoff, Monocle's man in Helsinki, and I'll be bringing you the news from the Nordics.
And we'll have a highlight from the team at Mipim in Cannes, and Monocle's editorial director Tyler Brûlé is joining us on the line from Thailand. It's the 15th of March 2026, live from London. This is Monocle on Sunday.
Live from London, this is Monocle on Sunday with Emma Nelson.
So let's start by introducing today's panellists. I'm delighted to say that Charles Hecker, author, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, joins us around the table. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Emma.
And Tessa Szyszkowitz, author and UK correspondent for the Austrian weekly magazine Falter. Welcome back.
Good morning.
How are we?
We are very well because it's bright and sunny outside.
Yeah. How has your week been? What have
Excellent.
you been doing?
Well, I went to Swindon to see Nigel Farage talk to his fans there, which was an interesting experience of a government in waiting without actual ministers who could do the job. So, you have these runaway Tories that appear with Nigel Farage now always at these rallies, and you think like, okay, UK, if you vote for these guys, good luck.
How do you explain all this to the Austrians?
Because it's the same in Austria, in the far right in Austria is polling number one in the polls with about 30% like the Reform UK is here. And so I wonder if people have collective amnesia and forgot that what Reform UK did here, basically Nigel Farage delivering Brexit, wasn't such a great success, at least for the economy of this country. And the far right in Austria, of course, had to resign because they were too corrupt and too incapable of actually running a government. And so if we are back at this, we really look at the very, very sad, center of politics being eroded by possibly, violent algorithms in social media.
How about you, Charles? How's your week been?
It's been busy, thank you. Lots of running around, lots of workshops, seminars, lectures.
What are we all thinking about in springtime London in 2026?
In springtime London 2026, I'm pretty much Monday through Friday thinking all day about Russia, talking about Russia and Iran, talking about Russia and Ukraine, talking about Moscow and Washington, talking about Putin and Trump, and various combinations of all of the above.
You happy man.
You carry your burdens lightly, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the Gulf of Thailand, though, where our editorial director, Tyler Brûlé, is standing by. A very good afternoon to you, Tyler. It's just gone, 1600 where you are. How's the afternoon shaping up?
Indeed. Good morning, Emma. It's just gone after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The waves are rolling in. Birdsong is happening. Thailand is officially in summertime now as well, because as you go down the motorways in this country, lots of sale signs on saying that summer has officially begun. Who knew that it happened at the start of March?
Do they literally have to put a sign up to tell us?
Well, at least if there's specials on, whether they're sort of sales or you need to buy your swimsuits, and also prepare for Songkran, because also Thai New Year is also coming up as well.
Okay, and people are getting ready for that. So how is the Gulf of Thailand last time? I think one of the previous occasions when you've been on the phone to me from Bangkok, or indeed from Thailand, is you've been in a supermarket. Now, and I was rather hoping that you would be the same today, but you might not be directly in the aisles, but you've been in there, haven't you?
I have. And listen, I think last time we spoke I believe I was in CM Paragon last time. And I think we were in some level of hysteria. I don't know why. I don't know what was happening in the grocery store. I'm trying to recall.
I can remember. You brought me back some prickly heat talcum powder.
That's right. And actually, there's requests now all around for prickly heat talcum powder as well. We can come back to that as a potential growth area in the world of personal hygiene as the world gets hotter the further north you go. Or we'll just leave it there for the rest of this program. But no, listen. Last time I was saying there's something about the Thais and Thai retailers. They've mastered the grocery store. And I'm not talking about, a big sort of out of town store. I'm not sort of talking about a place which only is specializing in, of course, Thai goods. I'm just talking about a good old supermarket. And there's wonderful competition here. You've got Central Group, of course, owners of Selfridges, now in the UK. Listen, they could teach that food hall a thing or two, bring the best of what they do in Thailand, which is their Tops food halls. These are a little bit more upscale, but it's still a traditional grocery store that you would find up and down the country. And then they've got a competitor in the form of Gourmet Market, which is by one of the other big retail and real estate groups. And I get depressed when I go back to Switzerland or when I'm in the UK and you walk the aisles of Waitrose or Migros or Coop or any of the other stores that dominate the European continent or the UK for that matter, because the Thais, they've got it figured out. I don't know if you've ever sampled one of these grocery stores, Emma, but they're really something to behold.
Walk us round one, because when you hear the lines of Migros and Waitrose in the United Kingdom, you do get the sense that there's a real idea of too much choice but playing it safe at the same time, and it's a very odd combination. But just walk us down the aisles, Tyler, to explain to us why they set your heart aflutter.
Well, first, before you get down the aisles, there is this, I wouldn't quite call it a forecourt, but you have this space, which, of course, as you know, these are of course major retail players, so they want to of course generate some type of rent from other types of tenants. So you probably have anywhere from 10 to 20, maybe up to 30 different vendors. Almost sort of, you would say, sort of upmarket stallholders, who have everything from, fantastic take-home sushi. You might have a Danish bakery. You could have, of course, all kinds of different Thai specialities, from desserts to people just dealing in amazing sort of coconut slushies, whatever it is. So already your heart is racing before you go into the store, and then it's the lighting, it's the merchandising, and I mean, you can literally get supermarket space out, because I think it's actually rather the opposite of what we have in Europe. There's so much choice. Who knew that there were so many types of liquid body soaps? There's a whole aisle devoted to this. Who knew that Lisa of Blackpink fame could be the face of I don't know how many different types of toothpaste or versions of toothpaste for one national Thai brand. So I know there's just I would say the merchandising, the marketing that is going on, but it is the choice from every corner of the world. You want German sausages from a Thai manufacturer. There seems to be a very large conglomerate dealing in all kinds of German sausages. I'm not just talking about sort of, typical sort of, Wurst that you, or sort of cold cuts. We're talking about, things that you would also be putting on the barbecue, on the grill as well. And then, there's a great champagne bar, and on it goes. But again, it's not only just in the most, upmarket malls that this happens. I even sampled, such an outfit, heading out of Bangkok in a kind of just a regular sort of middle-class suburb as well. So anyway, the Thais have something to teach us about the world of retail, certainly food retail for sure.
We've got Charles and Tessa in the studio at the moment, and there is that there's two things that are being sort of explained to us here, which is the exoticism of the foreign supermarket, the international supermarket, which is totally seducing. I was in seductive. I was in a British supermarket this week near a station near to the direct connection to Heathrow. And there's a group of Japanese tourists going absolutely bananas about the sandwiches. They were just running around screaming. It was great, good fun. But Charles, that idea that a good supermarket is what? It's the centre of the community. It actually sort of encourages local business. That the whole point of it is, if you do it right, then it becomes a day out.
It's a reflection of local culture as well. I mean, it's a reflection of local priorities. And just as Tyler was saying, sort of what's on sale, what's in the front of the supermarket, what's in the back of the supermarket. And, I have to confess, I'm one of those people who, no matter what city I'm in and no matter what its other cultural delights are, I will stop into a supermarket. And I did it once in the town of Kirkenes in the very, 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 very top of Norway. And so, first of all, you're in all of this sort of Norwegian exoticism and also an absolutely meticulously perfect layout and shopping experience above the Arctic Circle. But Kirkenes is also almost walking distance from Russia. And so you have essentially a Norwegian supermarket and a Russian supermarket combined. And it was just nirvana.
What did you leave with?
Oh, God, I left with, so the first thing that I always have to do whenever I'm in any kind of Scandinavian supermarket is buy sort of the tubes of roll-up caviar, that comes out of sort of toothpaste-like tubes.
Excellent.
So I left with a bunch of that. And then I was absolutely spoiled for my selection of herring. And so herring, 6 ways till Sunday, and walked out with quite a bit of that as well.
Tyler, what did you walk out of the Thai supermarket with?
I walked out with just because we were on the way south, bit of a family trip. So it was only some fresh coconut water from I think the stand was called Cocoa Me potentially, but or Cocoa On anyway. But that was the extent of it. I think one of the amazing things here, though, and just going back to what Charles was saying, is also because there is such an array of expat communities here as well, and of course these grocery stores, they are very good at, of course, I know we'll be talking to Petri in a moment. They're targeting the Finns, they're targeting the Germans here. Of course, I believe Bangkok is the second biggest Japanese expat community. It could be the biggest now, actually, in Asia. So you have, of course, massive Japanese sections, huge Korean sections, and on it goes. So it's also a reflection of also Bangkok, of course, being a place, of course, where people are working, people are retiring, and then you look at all the American goods as well, and it's especially when you're sort of in and around central Bangkok, you make no mistake that this is also the biggest U.S. embassy in the world as well. So they're definitely catering to, of course, all of the diplomats and the extended family.
I'm going to need a bigger kitchen. Tessa, you've been travelling all over the place. You've been travelling all over the place. Which supermarkets have impressed you in the last few years?
I think my biggest shock and awe moment in a positive way in a supermarket was when I moved to Brussels and stepped into Belgian supermarkets for the first time and realized that they have a real wine department with a sommelier on hand. I mean, I came from the Middle East at that time, and of course you don't have...
An oasis appeared before your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And so this was really, for me, the real idea about the local culture in influencing the supermarket display.
Tyler, the wine section in the Thai supermarket, how was that shaping up?
Very good. They do segregate it somewhat as well, though, because they've changed the laws slightly, Emma, but there have been consumption laws in terms of what time you're allowed to purchase wine. This has to do with holidays and various things. But from what I could see now, I think that this has bended. I'm sure they might put a sign up on the door on specific days. But listen, if you wanted to buy wine today at Gourmet Market, 10 till 10, away you go. Of course, alcohol comes with quite heavy taxes in Thailand, but of course there's a great array of wines and of course other spirits, and also a domestic business as well, even a domestic wine business now in Thailand.
Let's talk about more retail. You want to talk about Uniqlo? Why is that?
Well, this is why we ended up at the Gourmet Market, because I'm sure many of our listeners will know that Uniqlo, of course, the division of fast retailing from Japan, of course, one of the world's, you could say, we have to shorthand it, one of the world's largest fast fashion brands. I think one that is about to overtake H&M quite soon, I believe. So again, this is really one of the world's big three players alongside Zara or Inditex and H&M. And they have a new concept. It's not been rolled out everywhere, Emma, but it's just called Uniqlo Roadside. And this is a store, it's a concept, it's a box store that is in the suburbs, where they also try to, of course, bring together a sense of community as well, that they're bringing in other local stallholders. Maybe there's a local coffee brand that they sort of create a bit of an occasion, particularly on the weekends. But this is a box store which you can pull up. You don't have to sort of work your way through a mall to find your Uniqlo. And this, of course, many of us, in Europe have the luxury of having a Uniqlo in a city center, quite easy to get to. But of course, if you're in Bangkok, and I believe there's well over 30 Uniqlos just in Bangkok alone. It's significant, and this is a city with rather complicated traffic, and so they've rolled out this roadside concept, and they exist in the Philippines, and they exist in Japan as well. But this is just if you are somewhere out in the distant suburbs or near suburbs, you can just sort of pull up. So I just wanted to see what this was all about, and it's pretty much a Uniqlo like any Uniqlo we know. This particular one, because it was part of a larger strip mall, didn't have extra amenities. It didn't have sort of the stall holders, et cetera, that I've seen promoted elsewhere. But anyway, nevertheless, just an interesting concept. But one thing which was alarming, I'm a big fan of Uniqlo and what the Unai family have built. I'm not sure that anybody over the age of 10 needs to wear jorts.
Jorts.
And they're big on jorts this season. There's jort displays everywhere.
In Uniqlo, because Uniqlo usually errs on the side of good taste, which is why, I think, full disclosure, we're all wearing a piece of Uniqlo in some form or another around this desk today. But the jort, could you talk us through the jort, Tyler, and why maybe this is not something that you should wear again if your age is in double figures?
Well, exactly, and the jort it's a jean short, and which. Listen, of course, we think maybe jean short. This could be sort of a cutoff, one which is just hugging below your bum line potentially. But this is more of a culotte, I would say. This is sort of a kind of a flappy denim short that comes just above, or well, depending on your legs, could be just below the knee as well. And they're pushing this look. Everyone can jump in. Everyone in the studio. Charles, they've got them for you. They've got them for Emma. They've got them for Saskia. They've got them for all of you. So but they don't, because you must not go anywhere near them.
I'm a big fan of a culotte, though.
That's fine. Go for it. Then wear a culotte, but not a jort.
But just for the name.
Yes, of course. Now, Charles, you were being. I mentioned jort towards you, and you exploded with rage and terror.
This is only an hour-long show, right? So I'll have to keep it short on jorts. No, they do not have jorts for me. I'm the kind of person where, jorts are the sort of thing that you see in the summer when you're traveling through certain kind of Central European cities. And if I see a crowd of people with jorts coming at me, I will cross the street and walk on the other side. It's one of these sort of shibboleths. It's just one of these signs. It's one of the, I don't know what it is, but it's, usually culottes would be great because they're sort of loose-fitting and sort of sway along with you. Most of the jorts that I have seen are incredibly clingy and are painted on their wearers. And I just need to keep my distance.
Tyler,
Objections.
Sorry?
Objections.
What, Tyler, just explain. You said these are slightly baggy, but the picture that Charles has just painted is frankly a quite horrific one, which I imagine would be accompanied by cheap Havaiana sort of copies and bad toenails.
Well, I know exactly the type of jort and also the geography of jort that Charles is referring to. This is sort of more what a roadie would wear. This is sort of that cut off, sort of flappy type of short denim. And this is the thing where it's come from as well. I think this is the world of people who, the thousands of people who are probably mounting and de-rigging equipment for Taylor Swift or any number of other concerts as well. And that is probably where this has evolved from. Someone sort of this is kind of interesting. Look, can we sort of turn this into something, and let's make the summer of 2026 the summer of the jort.
Or rather, let's not.
Or let's not.
Tyler, anything else you want to talk about? I know there's something that we do need to mention.
No,
Are we done?
I think we've done the world of retail from the Gulf of Thailand, further north, further south. I think we've covered it.
Tyler, have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the line. Have a good. That was our editorial director, Tyler Brûlé, joining us from the Gulf of Thailand. And if you have got a pair of baggy denim shorts in your wardrobe, you have been warned. 9:20 here in London. Does anyone here have a pair of baggy shorts and denim shorts in their wardrobe?
Not yet, but I'm going to get one. I think you're much too negative about this. I think to combine shorts with, like a suit outfit with shorts is absolutely fashionable and fun. And if you have nice knees, show them.
Exactly. Well, yes. And this is for everybody. This is for men, women and everyone in between.
Let's go. Let's have a little bit more fun with our lives and our fashion.
Okay. Would you do baggy denim, though?
I think it could be kind of a good idea.
Okay, we will. We're just coming into spring now.
I'll show
we'll
you
wait
next time.
We will. Can't wait. How about you, Charles? Have I ever seen you in shorts? Because shorts were a big thing here at Midori House. Fernando Augusto Pacheco, our man of music and culture, etc., is a big pioneer of them. And anyone who follows him on the internet sees absolutely everything that God gave him because of the tightness and the shortness of the short. I suspect that you don't fall into that camp.
No, I have so far in our relationship, Emma, spared you the trauma of seeing me wearing shorts. I have a drawer full of shorts that I gleefully break out when weather permits, and that will happen in the next few weeks and months. I don't think, I consider coming to Midori House, a professional opportunity, and I really don't think that shorts are appropriate in professional settings. There was, a long time ago, a big debate that raged on the pages of the FT about whether men should wear shorts to the office. And, there were pros and cons and what kind of shorts you can wear to the office and what kind of shorts you definitely can't wear to the office. And I kind of think that you really shouldn't be wearing any sort of shorts to the office or in a professional setting. Maybe in the relaxed environment of Midori House on Sunday. I'll give it a go, Emma.
Okay, thank you for that. It's 9:22 here in London. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Emma Nelson, sitting around the desk, Charles Hecker and Tessa Szyszkowitz. Tessa, what stories have you spotted today? Do we need to talk about Iran and the various permutations around what is a wide-ranging war?
Well, there's, of course, a lot of sad stories around Iran, and because we all are anxiously looking at how it destabilizes the Middle East and possibly all of us, it's worth mentioning that the Secretary of War of the United States has warned us all journalists that we are not reporting correctly on the war because we are so, incredibly anxiously pointing out that it's a destabilizing thing, a war, because he thinks it's actually, we should report with headlines like Iranian regime is struggling to survive and not point out that they're actually still shooting at Israel after they have been under total attack for the past weeks. And so there's a big question of what is actually the framing of this war. Are we, the mainstream journalists, the one who are at fault, or is it maybe the U.S. administration's expecting us to applaud them?
That's right. So there's an awful lot of coverage this weekend about the relationship between the military and the media in Washington. And, it's come to a particular boil over the past couple of days when Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, or as he likes to be called, the Secretary of War, gave a bit of a public reprimand, and that's putting it lightly, to CNN for asking rather pointed questions about how the war is unfolding. And, I think what it reveals is a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of the media in Washington. What the New York Times tells us in a particular story that's gracing their pages today is that the regulator in the United States is beginning to engage. And so you have Brendan Carr, who's the head of the FCC, which is the media regulator in the United States, saying that he will revoke broadcasters' licenses unless they sort of become more friendly in their coverage of the war. And I have to tell you that it's concerning because this is part of an ongoing trend. Because if you just cast your mind not too far back, you will recall the suspension of the Jimmy Kimmel Show for not being terribly friendly on the airwaves. You will also recall the cancellation upcoming of the Stephen Colbert Show, which is a great source of political satire in the United States. His show will be going off the air in the next couple of months. And you've seen the government put its thumb on the scales in media transactions involving Viacom and Paramount. You've seen the government put its thumbs on the scales of transaction involving the sale of Warner Brothers Discovery. And Pete Hegseth out loud said, he can't wait for Paramount to take control of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is the parent of CNN, in his anticipation that a favorable owner of an international media brand will then put his thumbs on the scale of CNN's coverage.
And also we need to go back to the more fundamental basic issues of reporting anything from the White House now, because it was at the beginning of the Trump administration, Mark II, that so many major broadcasters and indeed newspapers vacated the White House press corps because they had to sign something which meant that they would not effectively be critical of the Trump administration. And if you are now a reporter in Washington and you want to go to a press conference, you have to apply the day or 2 days before in order to see if you can actually get into the room.
Well, actually, the room itself is so small that often people don't even go there. But it's also that some media has just been kicked out of the sort of inner circle of the media that always reports from that. We have seen this with AP over the question of the Gulf of Mexico, which is now called the Gulf of America, and all these kind of things. But I see also a lot of pushback. The New York Times reporters, they have always been very critical to power, and so they're used also to the fact that they are not greatest friends with the people who inhabit the White House now. So I think we see a lot of normalization of journalism that is not journalism, but is sort of applauding podcasters or bloggers who are suddenly part of the press corps there and are allowed to sit in the briefing room and ask questions to Zelensky, which are completely outside of the realm of journalism. But we'll see how this battle continues. I think what Charles was saying, the acquisition of CNN through Paramount Skydance is, of course, a really, really concerning issue, because the billionaire Larry Ellison, who stands behind this, is a big Trump supporter. His son David is now sort of directly influencing this huge company, and they have put in part of it. For example, CBS News is now headed by Barry Weiss, who is sort of we are seeing a change in American media towards people who are not, as it was, sort of independent critical thinkers, and are being put in place there to normalize Trump views. And that's, of course, a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, what the administration will tell you and its various supporters is their argument, not that I am a supporter of it, but just to paraphrase, their argument is that the U.S. media has a liberal bias built in. And what they're doing, in their own words, is a corrective of what they see as a liberal bias. And this is part of their campaign against liberal bias that they see everywhere, in American universities or in woke companies or, in all of these different sort of manifestations. I think, look, I did 8 years in American print journalism and was trained to believe, and do believe very firmly, in the separation of the news pages and the editorial pages. And, it is within a newspaper or any media outlet's rights to express an opinion in an opinion piece, no matter who that angers. What most American media outlets are relatively good at doing is keeping the politics out of news coverage. What escapes everybody is sort of this all sort of began really with the presence of Fox News, which is politicized from sunup till sundown in its opinions and in its news coverage.
The interesting thing that I find about all this is that there are, enormous shifts in tectonic plates in terms of the way that the media is structured in the United States, as you have just laid out. But at the heart of it is a president who is quite happy to invite journalists just for a 2-hour natter and a talk, and he will talk at people. And reportedly, there are not quite as many press lines coming out from the press corps, simply because they don't know what Donald Trump is going to say. And you have reporters saying there is unrivaled access to the president himself, off the record talks in a way that no previous president has ever done. So while it all structurally changes, there's this incredibly unstable heart.
Yes, but it's also, there's something completely new happening. It's Donald Trump phoning journalists when he just feels he wants to have direct access to someone. And he doesn't only choose, like-minded media that he phones. He phones, the editor of The Atlantic to give him an interview in the early morning of something. Everyone picks up their phones also if it's very early in the morning. And so we have a new phenomenon that is, it's unchecked messaging from the White House. His own press people sometimes don't know what he's doing. Journalists are sort of directly reporting on this also because everything has to go so fast. It's also not really checked on facts. It's just the president saying something. So if he says now that the Iranian regime is crumbling, it doesn't matter that, this might be considered to be fake news because he's just saying this live on the record in some kind of podcast or TV interview.
There's this fantastic anecdote told by one of the BBC broadcast journalists in the Washington, D.C. bureau who got a phone call from President Trump at something like 4 o'clock in the morning. And when your phone goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning, you don't know, is it the phone? Is it the alarm? Is it the doorbell? Is it, an Amazon delivery? Like you wake up so disoriented. And this correspondent...
Guess who?
Yeah, he picks up his phone, manages to sort of, swipe his finger across the screen and it's Donald Trump on the line. And, off you go. And exactly as Tessa described, it's sort of all of a sudden this fire hose of information coming at you in this stream of consciousness. And, he does a great, he did a piece to air describing what this phone call was like. And it's riveting to listen to.
It's a funny thing now that people are now wondering whether everything that Donald Trump says needs to be covered just because it's the United States president doesn't necessarily mean that what is being said is newsworthy. It's a very, very strange world that we find ourselves in. Right, it's 9:32 here in London. It's 11:32 if you head to Finland, which is where we're off to in a moment. We'll be hearing from Petri Burtsoff in just a second. But first, let's hear about Kona. It's one of the world's most famous lift companies, elevator companies, and it's revealed a new report talking about the workers in 10 of Europe's major cities and the return to work, because obviously this is Kona's bread and butter. This interview was recorded at Mipim in Cannes this week. The company moving, 2 billion people every single day, 1.8 million lifts or elevators. That's an awful lot of lifts and escalators. Andrew Tuck, our editor-in-chief, was at Mipim and heard from Kona's Carl Lindahl, his executive vice president for Europe. And she began by talking to Andrew about what this report about the return to work actually revealed.
What's to be remembered is that land is a scarce resource, so that's why cities are building increasingly upwards, which is of course great for a vertical transportation company like us or a vertical mobility company. Another big trend is how everything's digitalizing and very much applies also to what we're doing. We're very much transforming our entire service business into a digitalized way of working. And even more importantly, we are connecting all of our elevators digitally, through which we can enable so many great things to our customers, to building owners, to facility managers, because we can provide transparent data on what the elevators are doing, occupancy rates of the building. We can do predictive maintenance and even remote maintenance digitally. So that's a huge trend, digitalization. Thirdly, a big trend, of course, in Europe is aging demographics. So aging people, accessibility in all kinds of buildings is super important because, our population is aging. People want to stay at homes. So we need to make sure that elderly people can also move without problems and very smoothly.
Well, now, one of the reasons we were excited to have you in the studio today is you're just about to drop, as we speak, a big piece of research which talks about that digitalization, because you are able to collect an insane amount of data about behavior in buildings and how people use lifts and escalators. Just tell us a little bit about this report. So it's looking at activity in a number of cities. Tell us where you went to, what the report's about.
Yes, it's super interesting because we looked at a 5-year period, so basically the whole post-pandemic era. We had focus on office building segment here, because we wanted to understand in this study, in this particular use case, whether people have returned to the offices after the pandemic. So we looked at 1 billion elevator journeys over this 5-year period around the 10 major cities. And what we found is that actually from 2022 to 2024, every year in all of these 10 cities, activity in office buildings has increased, which means that people have been progressively and increasingly returning to the offices in these 10 major cities. But then interestingly, in 25, as compared with 24, 8 out of these 10 cities continued this increase in activity, but 2 declined. And those 2 are Frankfurt and Rotterdam. So, of course, then the key question is, what do we do with this data? What does it tell us? Does it tell us that we haven't made the offices attractive enough in these cities for office employees to return? Then on the other side, which have been the cities that have been growing activity the most in the office buildings are Dublin and London out of these 10 major cities. So I also find that very, very interesting.
Often when you speak to people in your sector, there's a lot of discussion about how long you wait in the lobby for the lift to arrive and the friction, if it's more than a minute, for example. But I often think that the friction also is in the other way when you want to leave or when you need to go out, because I think people don't like going to offices if they feel that they're kind of trapped there from the minute they arrive until the minute they leave. Great that you have a nice staff canteen, but people want to go out and get fresh air and go for a walk at lunchtime. And if you think, oh God, it's always so painful to get out of this building, that's another reason that you don't come back. So the exit is just as important. Is that something that you think about?
Absolutely. So I think all of this goes into this concept of smooth people flow for us. That how do we ensure that the mobility in the building and between buildings is smooth, is a great experience. One customer said it, I think, in a very interesting and even entertaining way. They gave us this point about a 3L rule when it comes to a functioning office building. And the 3 L's are lobby, lift, and loo. So basically, what makes a great experience for a building is that these 3 L's need to function really well for a person to get a great experience. And I think when you think about it, it's funny because with the 3 L's, but if you think about those are what everyone experiences. You come into the building, you experience the lobby. Is it a functional lobby? Is it working? What kind of an experience do you get? The next one is the lift. And then most people will use the loo while being there. And these 3 sort of make it or break it in terms of experience.
So you now know how people use the lifts, what times are peak and not peak. I presume that can impact how then people use energy in other ways throughout the entire building.
Yeah. So again, linking to modernization, modern elevators, in all of our modern elevators, we have what we call regenerative drives, which basically means that whenever the elevator slows down, when the elevator brakes, the drive stores the energy and then releases it back into the sort of building grid to be used. So this regenerative drive and some additional features that we have in modern elevators can actually help reduce the energy consumption of elevators by 70%. And the customer have actually been amazed that, why haven't we done this earlier? That we have this amazing source of data that we can link to other parts of the building and make them more sustainable, increased efficiency of the entire building system, and turn it into also money savings.
That was a brilliant Carla Lindan from the Finnish elevator company Kona, speaking to Monocle's editor-in-chief Andrew Tuck at Mipim in Cannes. You can hear more urbanism conversations from Mipim across our live shows next week. But let's keep with the Finnish theme and let's talk about lifts. Petri Burtsoff is Monocle's correspondent in the region. He's our Helsinki correspondent. Good morning, Petri. How are you? Where are you? And what's happening where you are?
Good morning, Emma. I'm just in a park
by the coast in Helsinki, obviously. Why would I do this from a studio? I'm in a beautiful sunny park overlooking the sea. Some kids playing football. It's a lovely sunny spring day in Helsinki, mind you, still very cold, but it's blue skies and sun, and I'm definitely not taking the lift today. I'm going to walk up the stairs in order to be in shape. This is a nice segue for you, Emma.
Okay, so we're going to talk about fat fins in a minute, but let's talk about Kona and Lobby's lifts and loos. This is a really important part of life, isn't it? That's the fourth L.
Yes, exactly. And interestingly, speaking of Kone, I did a story recently on them for Monocle magazine, and the thing is, it's one of the biggest elevator companies in the world, but it's completely repositioned itself as a sort of a urban mobility company. Because they don't only do lifts and escalators; they do access controls at offices, at metro stations. Oh, there's a tram going by the way. I hope you can still hear me. But just the amount of data that the company collects on a day-to-day basis, as you said, they move something like close to 2 billion people every day, and they're actually making more and more use of that data to understand how people move in our cities, and the company is doing really well. Just a wonderful sort of a repositioning in a global market from a simple, well, not a simple, but solely an elevator company to a urban mobility company.
And a quick question about the headquarters itself. They have a massive lift in there, don't they?
Yes, they do, and I was actually taken when I interviewed the CEO. I was taken on the top floor of that skyscraper. I can really call it a skyscraper. Wonderful building. You could see all the way to Tallinn. It's only 80 kilometers away. It was a clear day. I could see to Tallinn, and I could see they had a nice sauna. Not that I did a sauna. I do serious journalism, but just seeing this wonderful how the skyscraper works, and of course they have the state-of-the-art elevators in that building. The smart lifts, they not only take you up to the floor that you're going to, they tell you directions. Okay, this is the meeting room we're going into. It's 2 turns to the left and so on. It was really quite an experience to visit the building.
I think that might blow my tiny mind. Let's move on to you did want to talk about I've called them fat fins. Is that unfair?
No, not at all. It's data says it all, and obviously, Emma, I'm the outlier here, but 2/3 of Finnish men are now, according to the latest figures, they're overweight or obese. And this data comes from, Finland has mandatory military service for all men over the age of 18. So, every year this new age group of men comes in and, they go through all these fitness tests. So that's an amazing amount, a large amount of data that you gather every year. And you have this sort of a time analysis of, what was their condition in 1980, 1990, and now, decades later. And it's getting the results are getting worse and worse. And now the data actually says that, 2/3, as I said, 2/3 of Finnish men are overweight or obese. I don't have the same numbers on women because it's mandatory only for men. Women also can do it, but I guess the numbers are not big enough to draw this same conclusion. But yes, us Finnish men, we are fat.
Also, not terribly polite to talk about women's weight on the radio.
Maybe not.
I'm surprised actually that the data didn't come from Kona because they're going to need bigger lifts. That's true. Or they should actually say that, hey, don't take a lift at all. Maybe you should walk up the 20 floors to the skyscraper. What's gone wrong with the Finnish waistline? Are they eating more? Are they drinking more? Are they not running up and down the stairs enough? Or what's happening, Petri, from your field work as you wander around? Are you noticing that the boys are getting bigger?
Yes, as I wander around and get into shape. Look, I think this is a sort of a European-wide trend, really. Our jobs are more and more stationary compared to what they were like before. And I think in Finland in particular, let's remember that Finland was very late to sort of urbanize and industrialize compared to a lot of other European nations. So, still sort of my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, they toiled the fields and they did physical work. And obviously now we're, heavily developed society. People mostly sit in offices and I guess do less and less exercise as well, as this data points out. But let's see, maybe the military service, maybe they need to build a more strict, maybe they should do like a Navy SEALs military strength training routine.
I wonder also, this has been widely documented on Monocle on Sunday, but when we had dinner together at Seahorse in Helsinki, you made me cheese and custard in the same bowl.
Yes. So maybe what we eat is one part of it, but I mean, we must be given some slack. I mean, the winters are dark, cold, and you just want to sort of cuddle up and eat some hearty stew. And who's going to eat a salad when it's -20 outside and you're sitting next to a fireplace? You want a nice glass of red wine and a reindeer stew, and yes, you might get a bit fat, but then you're not going to go and run a 10K when it's -20 outside.
No, absolutely not. And we love you dearly for that image that you just presented. Smiles all around in the Monocle studio. Right, let's get to some serious news where you are. We have Russian shadow fleet vessels all over the place.
Yes, exactly. So maybe I'll just begin with a very brief primer on what these shadow fleet tankers or vessels are. Basically, they're a network of quite often aging oil tankers and other cargo ships that are used to move Russian crude oil and petroleum products outside of Russia. To circumvent the sanctions against Russia, and they're all over the Baltic Sea. Very difficult to sort of keep track of them. They don't even have their transponders on, and basically now Sweden has gone a bit further than before. They twice in a week's time, or maybe in 2 weeks' time, they've actually boarded this shadow fleet tankers and gone and arrested a Russian captain of a said vessel, and I don't know if he's going to be tried or what. The sort of legally this is a bit troublesome, because yes, they're circumventing the sanctions, but they're sailing, they're navigating in international waters. So how do you go and just sort of arrest them when they're in the international waters? So this is sort of, they're also testing the waters, pardon the pun, of what can be done here.
Oh, let's bring Charles in, because this is your area of expertise, isn't it? The way that Russia manages to do business.
Yeah, this is an interesting escalation or acceleration in aggression against the shadow fleet, because we've now seen a number of countries actually board and seek to arrest these ships that are flouting maritime law and skirting regulations in order to transport Russian crude, typically. It's the timing of this is really, really interesting, because these ships and their cargoes right now are being snapped up at record pace, because India has been given a license by the United States Treasury to buy more Russian oil. And the United States has also temporarily, on a global basis, suspended its sanctions on Russian oil. And so Russian oil and the ships that carry them are very rapidly being snapped up and pulled into harbors to disgorge their contents. And so this is a really interesting development to see that yet another country has now boarded one of these ships.
Charles, snapped up in what way? Insofar as now that we have the US loosening sanctions, does that mean that these shadow fleets can come out from the darkness?
So one of the types of oil that's been put back on the market by sanctions relief is oil that was already on board ships and essentially floating around looking for a buyer. Those buyers have now materialized. And so when I say that this oil is and these ships are being snapped up, it means that they are now spoken for and have someone to purchase their cargo.
Let's move on. What else have we spotted in where you are, Petri?
Right. Well, another important piece of news in the Nordics, of course, is the NATO exercise taking place in northern Norway, Sweden and Finland, Cold Response. It's NATO's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, war game that NATO stages every year, every 2 years. It's now underway. We have 25,000 troops from various NATO countries taking part. Interestingly, I mean, this is the first big exercise after the whole Greenland spat. So, you have thousands of US troops also taking part and sort of fighting these war simulations alongside Danish troops. So this is, politically a very sensitive exercise as well. And again, an exercise that a couple of years ago I did cover for Monocle. I have very fond memories, almost hitting a moose, going to one of the exercises where we accompanied German sort of mountain rangers in this beautiful Norwegian snow-capped mountains. So I'll leave you with that image.
Thank you very much indeed. The interesting part of this, which is being reported this week, not you nearly hitting a moose last time, but thank you for that detail, is the fact that there is the civilian readiness area of this is really important.
Yeah, so all across the Nordics there is this concept of total defense, and basically referring to how it's not only the militaries of the Nordic countries but the whole societies that are sort of part of the war effort, if you will. And so in Norway, for example, in this exercise, they're now testing how the local hospitals can cope with a massive load of casualties. Obviously this is a simulation, and they're also, I believe, they're practicing sort of moving patients from one hospital to another, even moving from Norwegian hospitals to Swedish hospitals. So really testing how societies as a whole react to threats.
Petri Burtsoff, in a park in Helsinki, thank you so much for joining us on the line. We wish you the very best of days. That was Petri Burtsoff, our Helsinki correspondent. 9:47 here in London. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Emma Nelson, Charles Hecker and Tessa Szyszkowitz around the table. It is not often that we speak philosophy on Monocle Radio. We philosophise in our own way. But an enormous amount of coverage of the death of the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas, 96 years old, and speaking to sort of people who work in this sphere yesterday, and I said, who was Jürgen Habermas? And the reaction was huge. He said he was enormous. He was this huge, huge, huge man who kind of shaped the way that we think about how you think about democracy and how you have to have public space for people to talk outside government in order for a democracy to function. Is that right? Tessa, you wanted to talk about Habermas.
Yeah, because of course in Germany and where I come from, he is a giant of political thinking, of shaping public discourse. And he died at the age of 96. So, of course, he wasn't always right in the eyes of many people, especially now, just when we were just talking about the NATO exercise in the north. For Habermas, who came out of a Nazi childhood and into building a democratic society in Germany and in Europe, so he was very pro-EU, he was very for democratic structures. And it was very difficult for him to wrap his mind at his high age now, 4 years ago, that the war that Russia started in the Ukraine meant that we suddenly have to look at NATO as a defensive action alliance to push back on Russia, because Habermas was very critical towards the support that European countries gave to the Ukraine to defend itself. So he was not without flaws, and he was very, very much criticized for that by much younger philosophers and also political thinkers in Germany. But as you rightly said, Emma, his main work, The Theory of Communicative Action, which was published roughly 40 years ago, it taught us that we need rational dialogue. Not only we need to have rational dialogue, but we need to have the capacity for it. So we need to have structures that allow a public discourse. And I think that made him so relevant today, because as we all see now that we are sort of shouting from different camps at different people and destroying the capacity to have a rational dialogue. And that's what makes him so relevant. And that's, I think, why people today are writing about him.
It's interesting given the fact what we've just been talking about earlier on, because one of the things that Habermas also talked about, he was part of the movement that argued that in order to reconcile a nation to what it has done, we're talking about post-war Germany here, you have to talk about it and you have to accept it and take it on board. And Charles, we were just discussing a moment ago, right at the beginning of the programme, we were talking about the collective amnesia that people are experiencing in a current period of conflict now, that we seem to easily forget just how terribly, terribly wrong things can go. And also the conversations that we were having 20 minutes ago about Pete Hegseth saying that you must actually have that sense of just following what the media is saying to you, and the media is in some way controlled by the government. I mean, this is an extreme idea that we're talking about nowadays, which seems to be being normalised. So we kind of need a little bit more German philosophy on this.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, in the various obituaries that are lionizing, justifiably, Jürgen Habermas's work, they talk about his influential mentors and the sources of some of his opinions and his views. What we can only hope is that Habermas himself was a generous mentor to a new generation of similarly minded philosophers who will help defend or grow this public space. Because you're absolutely right. Public dialogue, as Tessa also said, has completely broken down. And, you know, I think we need this public space for rational communication is shrinking in size. And so what we need is another generation of Habermases to protect that dialogue, because the connection between that sort of open communication and democracy is vital, and it's breaking down.
And do we actually have the space to have that kind of conversation now? Because as we have not just the element, not just the essence of it all, you know, do we actually have the capacity, the space to talk about this? But also the fact is that a lot of discussion programs have vanished from our airwaves, and long read articles and spaces where people can actually get into the meat and the juice of issues seem to be shrinking as we now swipe up, down, never reading more than the first 3 lines of something.
I'm not quite sure that it is true. I think that people also take in information in different ways, especially younger people. And the Frankfurter Schule, sort of Habermas, Horkheimer, Adorno, they sort of are being revisited now by a very young generation of political thinkers and philosophers. And I might point out one to you all that I heard about now, because there's a buzz around her, was at the London Book Fair this week here in London. Louisa Munch, you know, the same family name like Edward, the Norwegian painter. She is sort of an Instagram and TikTok star, and she is sort of revisiting the Frankfurter Schule in her thinking in exactly on those lines we were just discussing. So, I mean, maybe we all lose this war on the front of communication skills in the way we were used to them, in, you know, writing long articles or listening to debate programs on public broadcasters. But there are a lot of new ways how people communicate. And she has this following. She's like 26 years old and has considerable traction in social media. And that might be a new way of having a public discourse, which is not only negative.
I mean, just looking at what she does online, I mean, her Instagram page sort of has 30 seconds on nihilism, critical theory, bit on Wuthering Heights. Hi, guys, here we are talking about Chomsky and inside the manosphere. I mean, it's that really tricky thing, though, isn't it, Charles? That when you try to explain how the world works, you have to use long words. And I'm sort of not trying to dumb this down at all. But the fact is that there does seem to be a barrier to the way that we actually talk about the way, you know, talking about talking, right? But to actually have someone like, Louisa Munch turning it into something a little bit more tasty, it's like teaching us the chorus of a song. We'll go and learn the words of the rest of the song later, but we just need it sort of being made accessible to us.
Yes. Well, let's all push back against the dumbing down of everything. and I have to just say that in the last 30 seconds, I've become Louisa Munch's biggest fan because, first of all, she's arguing that she's a professor in the United Kingdom. So we've got her, and that's great. Number one. And number two, she's arguing that university education should be free, which it once was in this country and is in many countries across the rest of Europe. And, you know, she is pushing back in what I'm looking at right now against this argument that a university education and an advanced degree is not, in inverted commas, worth it anymore. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. And the ability, to think critically, which is what you learn at university, is one of our greatest sort of rational tools. And if you make university free, you remove one of the arguments about the value of a university degree. You end with no debt, and you graduate with a critical mind.
We've just got 2 minutes to quietly touch on something which has made me think very, very calmly, which is listening to the sound of a train. The Caledonian Sleeper has created a soundscape. It's effectively recorded a train. I think we have a little clip of what you do when you log on to whatever thing you listen to, however means you listen to things, and this is what you get. Okay, that's not the Caledonian sleeper per se. That is, in fact, Inverness Station. But there are hours upon hours upon hours of the gentle rolling and lulling. Doesn't make me go to sleep, but it made me somehow concentrate fabulously. But you're not a fan, are you, Tessa?
I'm a noise canceller. If I first of all, to go to sleep, I need quiet, and to think, I need Schubert and not Inverness Station.
Okay, well, I kind of get that because that sounded like just the sound of someone's exhaust. How about you, Charles? What are your thoughts on 10 hours of train?
I'm a huge fan of the sort of soothing powers of non-invasive background noise, as long as it is to the exclusion of human voices. Things like traffic sounds, fabulous. Things like train sounds and the sort of absolutely sort of hypnotic. And, crashing of waves and all of these other sort of white noise type sounds. Big fan.
What do we think then? This is Twilight on the Rails from the Caledonian Sleeper soundtrack. I can't believe I'm introducing this. How happy are we?
Love it.
How about you, Tessa?
I don't need it.
You don't need it? Absolutely fine. So yeah, may I just say, for the last 2-3 nights, I haven't been going to sleep to it. But if you have some concentration, what is it? So you have Schubert. What is it that you have? I mean, London's traffic noise isn't quite conducive. I live next to the exit to St Mary's ambulance service, so it's quite noisy where I am. But yeah, London's noises comfort and soothe you.
I live in beautiful downtown Shoreditch, where there is no shortage of traffic noise, and it helps me fall asleep. And in fact, I find myself almost ignoring it because it is so ubiquitous and so backgroundy. And when I say, to the exclusion of human voices, Friday night and Saturday night in Shoreditch still has a bit of a share of some human voices. But the traffic it's kind of uniform, it's soothing, it's low key, and it's smooth.
Panicked by the sound of birdsong. Charles Hecker and Tessa Szyszkowitz, thank you so much for joining me in the studio. And thanks also to Tyler Brûlé and Petri Burtsoff joining me on the line. And thanks too to our producer Mariella Bevan and Desiree Bandley, and our studio engineer was Mariella today. I'm Emma Nelson. Monocle on Sunday is back next week. But until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye. Thanks for listening.